I'm sorry. Congress authorized going into Iraq, and they had as much information as they needed to make that authorization. And number two, the president did a superb job in knocking down Saddam Hussein and replacing his military. Now the question is, what do we do now?
This president's policies have not been equal to our best examples of world leadership. And nowhere is this more evident than in the Middle East. I want to be very clear. The blame for the murder of our people in Libya and the attacks on our embassies in so many other countries lies solely with those who carried them out, no one else. But it is our responsibility and the responsibility of the president to use America's greatest power to shape history, not to lead from behind, leaving our destiny at the mercy of events.
Well, let's see what I've done since I came into office. I said I'd end the war in Iraq. I did. I said that we'd go after al-Qaeda. They've been decimated in the Fatah. That we'd go after bin Laden. He's gone. So I've executed on my foreign policy, and it's one that the American people largely agree with. So, you know, if Governor Romney is suggesting that we should start another war, he should say so.
There's a broader lesson to be learned here, and Governor Romney seems to have a tendency to shoot first, name later.
The people of America recognize that the slowdown in jobs that occurred during the early years of the Bush administration were the result of a perfect storm. And an effort by one candidate to somehow say, oh, this recession and the slowdown in jobs was the result of somehow this president magically being elected, people in America just dismiss that as being poppycock. And so the people of America have to ask, do you want to stay with the president who is rebuilding the economy, who is creating jobs, or do you want to stop midstream and find someone new?
The president, a great leader, President George W. Bush.
Let Detroit go bankrupt. Let Detroit go bankrupt. Let Detroit go bankrupt.
Just a few years ago, the auto industry wasn't just struggling, it was flatlining. GM and Chrysler were on the verge of collapse. Suppliers and distributors were at risk of going under. More than 1 million jobs across the country were on the line, and not just auto jobs, but the jobs of teachers, small business owners, and everyone in communities that depend on this great American industry. But we refused to throw in the towel and do nothing. We refused to let Detroit go bankrupt. I bet on American workers and American ingenuity, and 3 years later, that bet is paying off in a big way.
Let Detroit go bankrupt. Let Detroit go bankrupt. Let Detroit go bankrupt.
As you might imagine, I disagree with the Supreme Court's decision, and I agree with the dissent. What the court did not do on its last day in session, I will do on my first day if elected President of the United States. And that is, I will act to repeal Obamacare. We do provide care for people who don't have insurance. People, if someone has a heart attack, they don't sit in their apartment and die. We pick them up in an ambulance and take them to the hospital and give them care.
When I think about members of my own staff who are in incredibly committed monogamous relationships, same-sex relationships, who are raising kids together, when I think about those soldiers or airmen or Marines or sailors who are out there fighting on my behalf and yet feel constrained, even now that Don't Ask, Don't Tell is gone, because they're not able to commit themselves in a marriage. At a certain point, I've just concluded that for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married. You know, when I go to
For a long time, I think from the beginning of my political career, I've made it very clear that I believe marriage should be a relationship between a man and a woman. And I know other people have differing views, but that's my view.
President, in an attack ad that's already out now, Governor, maybe in response to and a quick follow-up from this decision yesterday, that you've been all over the map on this issue, that you are against civil unions. You've said this is a state issue. Then you've said that maybe it's the federal government that should handle it through a constitutional amendment protecting marriage between a man and a woman. What is your firm position?
Well, thank you for any confusion that's there. Let me make it very clear, which is that my preference would be to have a national standard that defined marriage as a relationship between a man and a woman. That would then allow states to determine what rights would be provided for people of the same gender that wanted to have a relationship. There could be domestic partnership benefits, for instance, where one state might decide to provide hospital visitation rights. Another state might decide to provide that as well as benefits of other kinds. States could have their own decisions with regards to the domestic partnership rights. But my preference would be to have a national standard for marriage, and that marriage be defined as being between a man and a woman.
Gays quickly interpret that, Governor, as being discriminatory to them, and that a president, Romney, would etch in the Constitution something that discriminates against a large swath of people in this country, gays.
I am pro-choice. I believe in Roe versus Wade, and I come to that conclusion not because I'm pro-abortion, but because ultimately I don't think women make these decisions casually. I think they wrestle with these things in profound ways, in consultation with their pastors or their spouses or their doctors and their family members. And so for me, the goal right now should be, and this is where I think we can find common ground, and by the way, I've now inserted this into the Democratic Party platform, is how do we reduce the number of abortions?
I have always opposed abortion. But when I ran for office, I thought, well, I can say and can understand the idea of leaving the law the way it is. The Supreme Court has made its decision. I'm just going to say I'll support the law and preserve the law as it exists. That was somewhat naive, it turns out, because when I became governor, I found that you can't just support it the way it is, that the law changes over time. Do I believe the Supreme Court should overturn Roe v. Wade? Yes, I do.